My guest today is Agnes O'Casey. Agnes recently starred in Ridley Road, a 4-part television series based on the real-life 62 Group, a band of mostly Jewish anti-fascists in their fight against Colin Jordan's neo-Nazi movement in 1960s Britain. Agnes plays the lead role of the fictional Vivian Epstein, one of the key members of the 62 Group who goes undercover and infiltrates Jordan's neo-Nazis. Agnes, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Ellie.
Good.
Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. So, Vivian Epstein is a fictional character, but the 62 Group was very real. I want to know what drew you to Ridley Road and to the role of Vivian Epstein.
When the audition for Ridley Road came through, it was a really exciting prospect because, you know, as an actor, you have so little control over what you do and, you know, the roles you play, and the idea to get to sort of do something that actually aligned and felt like I was, you know, there's something really cathartic about the story. And so, you know, I think which is part of why I love it so much. It's like a real voyage of like bravery and so I think that when the audition came through, I was like, oh my God, this is, if to do this would be perfect, and it would actually feel like I give a bit of meaning to this silly little job that I do. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, this is your first television role, and what a first role, can I just say? You have dived right in the deep end. Did you find it daunting, having basically only done stage work, to suddenly being cast as the lead character in a BBC series about Jews and neo-Nazis?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, of course. There was just loads I didn't realize about like generally how to make TV. So there was like just so much learning going on, and I was on set every day. And you know, yeah, it's not an easygoing story by any means. It really took every part of me. By the end, I was so exhausted that, and you know, all the rallies, and you know, there's loads of things that are really impact your spirit, no matter who you are, you know. And I remember we did the big rally outside the synagogue towards the end of Ridley Road, you know, towards the end of filming, and I just got to a point where I was like, oh my God, you know, like it has an impact on your spirit, even though, you know, you're recreating it and people are yelling action.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it was quite a full-on role.
Yeah.
And you know, Vivian goes through quite a lot of pain and trauma in the series. How did you go about undertaking such an intense role, and was there something you had to mentally prepare for?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really sort of, something I find really interesting about us as humans is like, you know, like that generational passing down, you know, like people, what do our genes carry? What information do our genes carry, and how does that sit in your body? Like things like that is something that, you know, I'm really fascinated by, because it does, you know, pass down. And so I guess, you know, even though I do have Jewish ancestry, because I wasn't raised Jewish, I definitely did a lot of extra like reading and talking to Sarah and talking to Tracy about what it is, like what the base thing they feel they hold, you know, like things like that I thought were really important, because you know, Vivian goes on she also discovers it for herself, you know, it was quite a complex thing in that way. You know,
well, I saw it in one of your previous interviews. You said that you really didn't know much about the 62 Group or any of that before filming. So it's sort of like you, Agnes, are also going on this journey of discovery at the same time as Vivian.
Yes, exactly. Like I had no idea. At the same time as it's also my first job, so I'm also going on a journey of self-discovery. It's like there's a lot of beginnings happening here. You know,
it can only go downhill from here.
I know, nothing feels the same anymore. Every other project feels, well, no, I probably shouldn't say that, but you know, like this had such an obvious meaning that drove the whole project.
Yeah.
And so when you're running around doing something else, it feels a bit silly now.
I mean, you touched upon your Jewish heritage. Can you talk a bit about that and whether that had any whether that made the role more personal for you at all?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really great excuse to get my dad to talk to me about that side of our family.
Yeah.
Because like his father had died, and also it's speaking generally, but I think there is a statistic to say that mothers do pass on; they're more likely to pass on their culture or things, And I think Dad had just sort of like, he just hadn't really talked to me about it. And then when I got the role, we were able to. It was a great excuse, so Dad could like go into practical mode and be like, "Oh, let's talk about this," and like fished out loads of letters,
Wow.
like really detailed about like, this auntie's here and this. And I was like, where was all of this?
Wow.
Like all this sort of family in New York that are like really interesting, that are still there, and like we just we're just kind of like hermits in Devon. I'm like, why are we not, So that was really that was really amazing. And also just as a way to focus on set, because it would be so busy, and a lot of the time it's just Vivian.
Yeah.
I would imagine in my head that the crew were Vivian's, like sort of the ghosts of Vivian's ancestors, or just as a way. That sounds a bit too lally, maybe, but it was really helpful to be like, all these people walking the halls are like, do you know who she's doing it for?
Yeah.
And then I was like, that connection to like all of these people, I have no idea that I'm all, like that was special, I guess.
Yeah, no, it sounds special. I mean, I want to know what impact did the role have on you after? Was there any time we had to sort of decompress, or was it like, last scene done, I'm Agnes again?
Oh no, I really didn't want to say bye to Vivian. That was the saddest thing. I remember being like, I don't want to not be her anymore.
Yeah.
Like it was actually like a mourning process that, rather than getting over, I just don't think about as much anymore.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like 3 months as a person, it's like a really, really close friend. And also like playing a part like that, where she's so brave and self-sacrificing, it does like call into question your own bravery. And like, as in like, I mean, like, you can't, no one can do what Vivian does, but like questioning your own like bravery within activism, and how much you put yourself on the line. Like there's all sorts of things that made me think after I played her.
I do, and it's interesting. One of the reasons why Ridley Road, I think, is so popular is because it's one of the few series to place a female Jewish character as the hero of the story, which is really cool to see. Was this something that you sort of realized when you undertook the role, and how important do you think representation is?
Oh, I think it's it's paramount, really. Like, me and Sarah Soleimani, the writer, talked a lot about this, and like the majority of Jewish representation is sort of films about the Holocaust or comedies,
Yeah.
But like, where's that space where it's like a drama that really that doesn't place Jewish people as victims, for one, and also, well, I don't know, that can deal with these sort of. I think Sarah writes really well about addressing these stereotypes that just like aren't talked about, just are allowed to remain in the British psyche, So I do think it's incredibly important. Because it's just the truth. Like, that history existed, and like there are and I think especially for non-Jewish people to watch, I feel like there's a lot of similarities between Ridley Road and the story of Esther. So I don't know.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean? No, go on.
Well, yeah, just like I just think when you put them side by side, Sarah realized this once. She called me and she was like, "Have you noticed that? Like, it wasn't done on purpose, but there's like." So I wonder. I don't know what it would be like as a. I can't say what it would be like as a Jewish person to watch, but like I feel like it's a narrative that you'd understand. Whereas it's a story that hasn't been told to the majority of people, so I
Absolutely.
think,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm curious, what has the reaction been to the show?
Some pretty, well, like, we knew it would be pretty strong. There have been some pretty crazy people saying some really scary stuff,
I'm
for
sure.
sure.
Yeah.
But like, generally it's been really, really great. I would have maybe liked it to have caused a little bit more of a conversation about anti-Semitism, to be honest, on like more of a global scale. People were talking about it on Twitter and stuff. But beyond like publishing Sarah's and Eddie and Tracy's words and their interviews, like I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that. Like when we were filming, I was like feeling like, oh, this, you have to believe what you're doing will change things. And I would have, I don't know if I should say that, but it is the truth. I feel like certain elements, yeah. But generally, it has been great, and I feel like a lot of people were like, "God, I had no idea about this element of history," and sort of like, so that is great.
Yeah.
And it was kind of fascinating seeing what some of the far right guys were saying about it.
Yeah.
Like really, really, what's the word I'm looking for? Revealing. They're being like, oh yeah, this Ridley Road show is just saying that conservatives are fascists and Nazis. And it's like, no one ever said that. Are you saying that you maybe,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you talk about the online reaction, because I don't know if you saw, but both Eddie Marsden and Tracy Ann Oberman received anti-Semitic abuse for their roles. And it's also interesting that Eddie Marsden is not Jewish, yet he still received anti-Semitic abuse because the people giving it to him were saying anti-Semitic things. Did that surprise you at all?
Do you know what? It did, even though they have received so much anti-Semitic abuse in the past. I thought that because, I don't know, I was still surprised, which is maybe naive, but like I think maybe Tracy would be like, oh yeah, of course, so I just would have thought that the show would, if anything, be more humanizing of people. Like it feels like such a sort of universal tale to me. I don't see how someone could watch that and then, but like, the people that go after Tracy and Eddie just have such an agenda, that will just override anything. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, what was it like working with them? Because they're such established actors. Was it comforting to sort of have that presence with you?
Oh, I think it was amazing. Like, and they they were so great, and like they really took me under their wing.
Oh.
Like Tracy, like FaceTime me at night and be like, "Okay, let's talk. How are you feeling? What do you think?" Like she had so much heart in the project, and for me, and when we were working together, she was just so affirming because I was horrifically riddled with imposter syndrome and terrified, all of this, and Tracy would be like, God, I just love working with you. Like this dynamic's so fun. And,
That's lovely.
like talking about it was, I really was so thrilling. And Eddie as well. He was like, I mean, it was just the best. He'd call me Bubbler all the time. I miss him. I miss it so much, And it was great to watch them work because they're amazing,
Yeah.
And the power of both of them. Eddie, like being shouted at for a day by Eddie, obviously as Solly, but it's still like it was thrilling.
Yeah.
It was really, really palpable.
Well, I thought one of the most engaging moments of the whole series was the interaction between Vivian's character and Eddie's character, Solly Malinowski. It's the bit where Solly is saying to Vivian that it's not enough just to oppose certain views, because anyone can find views objectionable. You have to do something about it. And I thought that was quite a powerful moment.
I'm so glad. Yeah, I think that was the scene I was talking about. That was, I think when we went into that scene, we knew how important it was
Yeah.
for the show. Like it's essentially the nucleus of the show.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'd say we took probably about half a day to film it.
Wow.
And, it was actually really amazing. And it took us a while. Eddie kept being like, this is so important. This is the most important. We'd be like, the energy in the room was like really intense. And we'd sort of
No pressure.
No, I know, no pressure. Just, yeah. But so it was amazing. Actually, the show started for me in a way then, because I think we'd filmed about a third of it, and then Tracy and Eddie came in, and we filmed the scenes in the 62 group, and I was like, this is the heart of the show, and this is what it is, which was really exciting.
Yeah.
And also, I was just in awe watching Eddie.
Yeah.
So funny.
You're watching legends work. I hope they don't mind me calling them. I'm not implying that.
They are.
Yeah, they are.
They are. And there, I feel like, there's only so much you can fit in a show, but there were so many funny, like, husband-wife improvs between the two of them and little looks, that just like were missed by the camera, but was just so funny.
Yeah. Hopefully there'll be an outtakes reel that everyone can see.
There should be.
Yeah. So going into, I want to go, veer into the acting industry with you now. There have been a number of incidents in recent months relating to anti-Semitism in the theatre industry, including the controversy over the Herschel Fink character at the Royal Court. Do you think any of these issues will bring about change in the acting industry? And do you think young actors and creative talent have a harder time calling these issues out when they arise compared to more established figures like Maureen Lipman, who are perhaps able to take action with less risk to their career?
Yeah, well, I think to take that last question first, I do think so. I think especially for, around these issues for Jewish actors, because as I think Maureen Lipman said, it's like a lot of Jewish actors are hiding their Stars of David and are worried about, being blacklisted simply for their identities. I think that's terrifying, and so it is scary standing up when you don't have a platform. You do feel like, you might be stopped before. I do think there's less risk for non-Jewish actors to talk about it. But I don't really see that happening to the scale that I would like to. Like the Herschel Fink, I'm glad they changed his name. I can't believe that happened in the first place.
Yeah.
But I was at a table the other day where someone genuinely said, like, what's the big deal? And that's a very sensitive,
wow.
In general, a very like thoughtful person came out with that. And I mean, that's just one person. And the majority of people I've talked to have been like, how did that get through? Like, what?
Yeah.
Who, but so I do think it will change, but I do think it needs a lot more attention and airtime, actually. I don't know why these things aren't on the front page of newspapers. Well, I mean, I do, but
yeah. I do know.
But they really, really should be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things that's come about, since the beginning of my research in Ridley is realizing this sort of like systemic anti-Semitism.
Well, going back to the acting industry for a minute, one of your previous roles was the part of Prince Aragon in The Merchant of Venice, a play that obviously raises themes around anti-Semitism and the historical role of Jews in the Christian world, particularly due to its depiction of Shylock, the Jewish moneylender. I'm curious, how was it to be involved in the production of such a highly debated play? And do you think it's possible for us now to enjoy a piece of art if it contains stereotypes that might no longer be considered acceptable by today's standards?
Yeah, so I think I was thinking about this, and I know that Tracy is going to be playing Shylock in Merchant of Venice. And like that is the Merchant of Venice I want to see. That's probably the only version of the Merchant of Venice I'm interested in seeing. We did it at drama school, and so it was a little bit stressful because you do worry about things being dealt with correctly, especially when it's, the character, it does hold so many harmful stereotypes. I'd be interested to know what Tracy has to say on this, actually, that like knowing that she's about to play them. We did have a Jewish guy in our class who played Shylock, and he was great, like in terms of, but I mean, I feel like it's tricky. I'm not clever enough to comment on all the intricacies of Shakespeare's writing, but it does seem like that's not what we need. Like, to put it bluntly, like this is totally separate from Tracy's version. I think that is what we need, but who we don't need to see another like Anthony Hopkins type like flex his Shylock.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, why would we need to see that?
Yeah.
Like these stereotypes are still like really ingrained in people. This like ancient thing that's not even based on anything, or this idea of like with the Herschel Fink thing. It's in the psyche of like the last thing we need to do is be sort of like keep watching it just because it's Shakespeare. Well, that would be my view anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
there's an interesting, argument to be had about whether we should, expect art to sort of evolve with modern standards and sort of be sensitive to those sorts of expectations and but on the other hand, some people will say, no, you must stay true to the material, regardless of what the material is. And, it's, I'm sure I have a point. It's just food for thought.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like, I would say I would say if it's harmful, we shouldn't do it. And I think that maybe, if you're seeing some non-Jewish actor playing Shylock with a million Jewish stereotypes, and, I'm sure that a lot of people will watch that and think, and like, just not know that there was anything wrong with it, and it could play into ideas about, pre-existing stereotypes. So, so I do think that that's harmful. I think it needs to be in the right hands, like, because obviously, like, I really love Shakespeare and I really love old texts, and I do think that some of these texts do have a meaning and should be preserved. It's just like how, and I do think that like how you do it is give it to Tracy.
Yeah.
If we, but other than that, I wouldn't have much interest in seeing it, and I do think it would have a harmful impact.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap this up, I want to ask you, Agnes, looking forward, what sort of roles would you like to take up? What would be your dream role if you have one?
Oh God, I'm always asked this, and I'm always like, I just want to work, please.
anything is fine.
But I have realized, like, since doing Ridley, like, it has somewhat ruined me for normal jobs, because like, I do really like it felt like it was really worth something.
Yeah.
And as terrifying as that was, and like I did feel like I was like, there was a huge desire to like do it all justice, and like that was scary, but at least it felt like it meant something. So I guess just to be very general about it, to continue in some sort of vein, like work that just does actually mean something.
Yeah.
I think, it's like, it's just so much more fulfilling than, and also like Vivian's the like dream first part, right? Because it's not just, she's also an actor. So you get to experience like every aspect of her personality, because she's also exploring what this might be to be like super feminine, and there's all of these elements to her. And so, I mean, it's a tricky act to follow in terms of the things coming in. I'm reading scripts like, it's not giving me that Ridley Road feeling.
Oh, you've been spoiled.
I know.
Well, look,
Oh, dear.
I want to let you know that Ridley Road did mean something, meant something to me, and it meant something to a lot of people I know. So thank you very much for doing it.
I'm so glad.
Agnes O'Casey, thank you very much for joining Podcast Against Antisemitism.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to listen to all the other guests ones. I'm excited.
Oh, yes, a plug for the podcast. Thank you.
Yes. Amazing.
Thank you so
Good
much.
luck with all the other ones. Yeah. No, thank you. Thanks. That was really lovely.